Hey everyone, welcome back to another video of Code at GWA. So today we'll be doing Module 5, and in this module we'll be going over the elif statement, which is another conditional statement, and as well as casting. So let's get into it. So elif statements always succeed an if statement or another elif statement. So if the previous statement has been false, so for example, if it is not raining, then it will go into elif statement. And then here, if it is not snowing, then it might go into another elif statement if there's an elif statement below it. Or otherwise, if it's an else statement, then it'll automatically run the code that's nested within the else statement. And you can have as many elif statements as you want. So let's see some examples of that. So as you see here in this code, if the weather input is sunny, then which we'll check first, then it will tell you to wear a t-shirt. However, if it's not sunny, it will then check if it's raining. And then it'll print bring an umbrella and boots. If it's not raining, then it's going to see if it's snowing, and then it'll print this. Otherwise, if none of these are true, then it'll print this. So as you see here, it has to go through this statement, before it can check this statement. And likewise here, it has to check if it's sunny before it can check if it's raining. So obviously, if we run this and we input sunny, then obviously we'd expect it to print this. But then if we were to say windy, then it would print this because none of these are true. So you can make kind of a very basic game with this, a guessing game. So if you've set a variable to be a specific number, you can kind of get people to guess numbers within a range. So obviously if it's 3, that's not right, it's too high. If I put 1, it'll be too low, but if it's 2, then it should print this. The matter doesn't really matter in this code specifically, but in future code it probably will, because remember, it will always check this before it checks this. So let's do task 1 now. In this code I put small as the first conditional check. The order in this code doesn't matter, and if it's small it will print your size shirt will cost this amount of money, and then I'd do the same check for medium and then large, and then if it's none of those then it'll obviously be an else statement because none of these are true, and it prints this. I put lower here as you can see, so if I even have to do caps, oops. And then if I do tiny, you can see here that it doesn't work. So one really important concept in Python is casting. In a lot of instances, you'll need to convert one data type to another. And as you know by now, the input function returns a string. And if you are receiving numbers as inputs, you might want to convert that string into an integer to make some bits of code easier. Int converts whatever the input is into an integer. So for example, if you put a string of 1, it will convert it into 1. If you put a float of 5.1, it will convert it into 5. It will always round down, so if it's 5.9, then it will round down to 5. It won't go to 6. But here 5.1 isn't a valid string, hence why there'll be an error. With float, it's pretty much the same as integer, but it converts things to floats. So if you had 1 as your input, then it just put 1.0 as the output. And then string will convert everything into strings. So as you can see here, you see casting in action, and you can see that they're converting a string into an integer, so it can perform a mathematical calculation, as you see here. Kind of similar deal here, but you might want to have whole numbers only. There is a function that allows you to round normally, like in normal maths, but in this case, if you just want it to round down, then you would use int. So this should give you 240, as you see here. Okay, so this task is fairly simple. So as you see here, I've used the int_cast function to convert these into integers. It will obviously return an object, so that's why you can have it in an operation like this. Oh, sorry, I named this wrong. So in this example, the code wants to return the age of someone, in the next year. So obviously to do that, you just add 1 to the age, but you can't perform mathematical operation on a string. So you convert the input into an integer, and then you can perform the operation, and then just print it. So I am 17, next year I will be 18, and that's what it should return. This is pretty much the same thing, but it's casting as soon as you get the return here. So because this returns an object, it's a valid input. Okay, let's try to do 3.1 now. Note that in this task, we're only expecting integer inputs and not float inputs, because it's a little more complex if you want to do the valid input check. So for now, just try to do integer inputs. Okay, so this is the code I wrote. Fairly simple. You're getting the inputs here. Then you're checking if they're digits to ensure that there's no error when casting. And then you're just printing the sum of it. And then obviously, if it's not a valid input, then it'll say so. So let's say 3 and 5, it'll be 8. But then let's say it's, oh, sorry. Let's say it's A and 2, it'll say that. And if we try to float, the same thing should be returned. Yep. Okay, so let's try to make the calculator a little more complex and add more operations like subtraction, multiplication, division, and exponentiation. So what I did here was I pretty much copy and pasted this and made it so that num1 and num2 are initialized as integers, or casted as integers rather than strings. I didn't print them straight away because there's multiple operations involved. And then I just added a nested if chain within this if chain itself, which checks if a digit. One thing I didn't go over before was and. Pretty much it considers these to be two parts of a larger whole. So if this is true and this is true, then the whole thing is true. But if one thing is true and this is not true, then this would be false. So they both have to be true. But if I said or and not and this is true and this was not true, then this would be considered to be true. There's also one more thing you can do, and that's add something called it's called not. And this is pretty much like an opposite. So if this is not true, it will consider it to be true. So if num1 was not a digit, then this would be true. So before we run the code, I want to go over one more thing, and that's the order of these if chains. So I mentioned before that it doesn't matter too much, but I just want to add one more thing, and that's you should probably put, it's best if you put something that is commonly occurring first. So here I am expecting people to have digits as inputs more often than anything else as an input. And the reason why you would do that is to save computation power. Obviously, if it's commonly inputted, then it's going to see this if statement and it's going to say, yeah, that's true. So it's going to instantly run that code. However, if this is last in a long line of code, then it would have to check every single one before it gets to the more common one. So let's try out this code. I want to divide 8 and 4, and there should be 2. One thing with division is that it gives you floats. Okay, so we know that division works. Oh, I did not put this as well. So this is a case where you might want to use not because I want the operator to be a non-alphanumerical character. I should probably put another check in there to ensure that it's either one of these, because there's obviously more than these when it comes to non-alphanumerical characters. And there's an easy way to do that with a concept that we'll learn in the future, with the lists, I should say. But I'm not going to do it for now. But I might reference this when we get to that point. So let's try addition now. Oh, oops, I made a mistake. So this returned error. Yeah. Yeah, so this should be 7. That should be multiplication. Cool, and then subtraction. So as you can see here, it also gives negatives when you subtract. So let's do exponentiation now. I changed my LA code because I forgot that it's two asterisk signs and not this um, to perform exponentiation. In some languages, it's the power sign. So this should be 8, and it is 8. So let's move on. So let's make a program that determines if an inputted number is odd or even. This will be really simple if we manage to do this. So give it a try. So this is my code here. It's pretty simple. It also uses a nested if statement to check if it's a valid input. I don't think I need to explain much here. I guess here. So here, although the division does return floats, if the number is the same, so like 2.0 and 2, it still equals each other. It doesn't matter if this is decimal. So let's say it's 3. This is odd, obviously. And let's say it's 16. This should be even. And let's say CF. There you go. Task 5 is a culmination of everything that we've learned so far. You have to make a function that returns the price of a pizza based off the inputted size. It should have a minimum and maximum size input, and if it's under or over this maximum or minimum, it should return a message like this and this. The dollar per inch should also be there, or dollar per whatever unit you want to have. So in our case, we did $3 per inch. And then it also should have the check, so the max and min check, like I mentioned earlier, as well as the valid input check. So I mean, it has to have digits. It can't be alphabetical or alphanumerical, or have any other character besides numbers. And then it should finally return the price, like I mentioned earlier. It should have a dollar sign as well as 2 decimal places at the end. Go ahead, try doing this task. Okay, so this is the code I made. As you see here, this is the opening statement. It tells the, I guess the person who's ordering the pizza, the cost of it and the range of it, the size range of it. Then you have your input here. This is your boundaries. So then it first checks if it's a digit, like the previous 2 tasks. If it is, then it turns it into an integer. And then if it's not, then it'll print this. And then it checks if it's within the boundaries. I could just say min and max here, or you can just get rid of these variables and put constants here. But I prefer to have variables because if you need to change something down the line, then you can, and there's no fuss involved. So yeah, if it's not within the range, then I'll print this. Otherwise, it'll just print the price of it. I casted it back into a string because I wanted to use string concatenation. So 25 is in the range. So that's the cost of it. 15 is not in the range, as you see here. 34 is not in the range. And the keyboard smash is not in the range either. 5.2 is an extension to 5.1. It adds an extra input, which is the pizza type. So on top of the pizza size, the pizza type should also influence the price of the pizza, as you see here. There should be 5 conditionals in this. The first one should check if the pizza size is a digit, as well as if the pizza type is an alphabetical character, alphabetical string. The second condition should be if the pizza size is within the range, specified range. The third check should test if the pizza type is one of the specified types. The fourth check should test if the pizza type and pizza size are valid in terms of their ranges and types. And the last check should return this, a generic statement in which the pizza size is not within the range and the pizza type is not one of the specified types. Okay, so this is my code. I didn't make many changes to the original code, but I'll go over them. So straight off the bat, I changed the hello message. So it tells the users that there are 2 different pizza types, and it tells them what the prices are. I also added the extra pizza input, so you get the pizza type input. I also added the specified pizzas. I also added the different prices for pepperoni and vegetarian, as you see here. I initialized pizza as pizza.lower. This just saves me from doing that in future checks. I also initialized these two so that it also saves more time when it comes to these if statements here and here and here. I added these two nested if statements within this nested if statement because obviously the price will change depending on whether or not it's pepperoni or vegetarian. So I added the p price and v price here. So this if here checks if the pizza size and pizza type are valid. If they're not, then it checks if it's the pizza type that's not valid. If it's the pizza type that's not valid, then it will print this. If it's a pizza size that's not valid, then I'll print this. And if neither of them are valid, then I'll print this. And again, if they're not digits or alphabetical, then I'll print this. So I'm going to start off with a double positive. So I'm going to do 25 and pepperoni. And that's valid. Let's try to do it with the vegetarian now. And that's also valid. Let's try to do a single negative, so the size will be wrong. There you go, the size is wrong, and it specifies that the size is wrong, not the type. Let's do a type error now. Oh, sorry, not a type error, an error of, you know what I mean. As you see there. And then let's put invalid inputs. So this should not be that, and it should not that. And there you go. It returns the correct output. So that's the end of this module. I understand that this one moved pretty quickly. So if you have any questions, then please feel free to let us know, like always. And yeah, thank you for watching.